Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is John Campea, and this is our special video, the all-open spoiler discussion of Incredibles 2. Now, of course, we do the reviews for the movies. I already did my review for this movie earlier this week, but, you know, we can't get into all the details. We can't really talk about the movies. So what I like to do with the bigger movies is on the Sunday after they open is have these spoiler discussions where we can just talk completely openly. So just be warned. If you haven't seen The Incredibles 2 yet, this video will be filled with spoilers in it. So if you're worried about that, you should stop this video now, add it to your favorites list, come back and watch it later. Or maybe you're like, hey, I'm going to watch this movie no matter what, so it's fine if I hear the spoilers. That's cool too, but just be warned, there will be lots of spoilers in this review. So we're going to talk about this thing. I want to hear from you guys as well. What are your thoughts on it? Some of the parts that maybe confused you, some of the parts that you thought were some of the best parts, some things you're looking forward to, some of the best moments in the movie, whatever your thoughts are on the movie, I want you to send them in. Now, I want to start with a couple of my thoughts here, and then we're going to go over to the live thing. We'll probably go for about a half hour here today talking about Incredibles 2. I want to start this off by talking about the little short film that played in front of it, Bow. Because Bow is now just part of the Incredibles 2 experience. Bow was so good. And I'll be honest with you, unlike a lot of the other, you know, short films that play in front of some Pixar and Disney films, I usually know they're coming. I knew Piper was coming. I knew all these different... I knew nothing about Bow. Now, they weren't keeping it a secret, I don't think. But I just hadn't been paying attention. I didn't really hear anything about Bow. So when I sat in the movie in the theater for the first time watching Incredibles 2, and Bow came on, it was a total surprise to me. And at first, you might have heard me say this earlier this week, I thought it looked stupid. I really did. I thought it looked dumb. It's like, wait a minute, oh, a little dumpling comes live. I mean, it was cool that it was taking place in Toronto. So yay, Canada. It was happening in Canada. But when it was first a dumpling coming to life, I'm like, well, this is kind of dumb. I mean, it was cute. But about 20 seconds after that, I fell in love with it. I mean, look, I'm not to use hyperbole, so it's not the best one, but it might be in the top 3. It might be in the top 3 best Pixar shorts ever. I adored it. And when the kid comes home near the end of the short, when the kid comes home and the mom wipes her tears away and she sees her son, and you realize the whole thing's been an allegory about her relationship with her son. And I almost broke. I almost broke. And I don't know if it's, you know what it was? I'm speaking on a personal note for a second. That scene where little dumpling boy comes home with the girl and she shows the ring and the mom's eyes and just freaks out. I don't know why, but I felt like imagining my mother's face when, you know, I probably got around to mentioning to her, hey, this girl I've been dating, it's really serious, and I think I'm probably going to marry her. And imagine, I got a little bit emotional. Imagining my mom thinking, well, he's not coming back. Because, you know, originally I came down to the States, and the plan was to come down to the States for 1 year. And then I was going to hightail it back home. And you know, and change that. And I can just imagine, I just thought of watching that movie and imagining my mother's face when I told her I met a girl. And, you know, when it probably became clear to her that she was the one. And that's all I could think about when I saw the mom's face when the girl shows up at the ring. Oh, it was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And then they were all working together, making the food at the end. Oh, it was so great. And just seeing it all. And I knew Anne was going to cry. So I saw it before Anne, but then I watched it with Anne. And I knew Anne was going to cry. Because it's very much like her home, but also the dad in it, who has no line. Well, nobody has any lines yet, but the dad in it looks a lot like her grandfather, who passed away a couple of years ago. So I knew Anne was going to cry because it was just... Anyway, I loved Bow. It's almost hard for me to put into words how much I loved Bow. I just thought it was so special and great. And by the way, at the press screening that I saw it at, I saw it for the first time, they didn't have the little introduction. I don't know if they had the introduction at your theater, because when I went to go see it with Anne at the AMC, there was this little 2-minute introduction or 1-minute introduction with Brad Bird, Craig T. Nelson, Holly Hunter, and Samuel Jackson saying, like them going, We know it's been 14 years. Sometimes it takes time. It takes a lot to put into these. We know this has been a long time coming, but we think you'll agree it's worth the wait. I thought it was a really nice introduction. And really, they address right away what a lot of us have been asking, like, why the hell 14 years? And by the way, it still shouldn't have been 14 years. It shouldn't have been this long until The Incredibles 2 came out. But it is, and it was, and whatever. So, let's start talking about Incredibles 2. I am still not sure which one I even like more. I'm still not sure if I like the first Incredibles more or this one. So, as I mentioned, I saw it at a press screening before Anne saw it. And then on Friday night, Anne came home from work. We had purchased the original Incredibles on Google Play. We watched the original Incredibles because she hadn't seen it. But, you know, halfway through, she goes, you know what? I did see this and I just totally forgot. So anyway, we're watching it and she loves it. Then as soon as the movie was over, we walked down to the AMC Burbank 16 and watched Incredibles 2. And we're walking out and Anne said the exact same thing I did. She was like, I don't know which one I like more. I don't know which one I like more. They're both so good. And I'm still not ready to say which one I think was better, the first one or the second one. But let's just talk about the second one. So funny. So great. The way they brought back in Tony Reidinger was priceless. And I think one of my favorite moments of the movie is when, first of all, Violet is all upset that Tony's pretending not to remember her, right? And Mr. Incredible's going into the freezer. So he opens the freezer door, and so all you see is the camera's here. Here's Mr. Incredible's face. The camera's looking this way, side profile Mr. Incredible's face, and the rest of the frame is taken up by the freezer door that's open, right? Because he's looking in the freezer. It's like, he starts talking about how, oh man, I remember when, I can't remember what the government guy's name is, Frank? Anyway, I'll just say Frank for now. I remember when Frank, hey, he had to mind wipe a whole bunch of people back in my day and blah, blah, blah. And then he closes the freezer door, and what's in shot is Violet looking at him with pure rage on her face. I thought I was going to choke on my popcorn. When I just started laughing hysterically, and I think I was mid-swallow on some popcorn, so I'd hold a bunch of popcorn like stuck right here because I'm trying to swallow it, but it's coming up because I'm laughing and choking at the same time. Oh my God, that scene was so funny. And then the second time I saw it, it was even funnier. Like, I just about passed out. That was just so perfectly funny. Or another Violet Tony scene when they go to the restaurant and she looks up and she realizes Tony's the waiter and the water comes spraying out of her nose. Oh my God, it was perfect. It was so great. And the second Incredibles, and I'll just finish this thought off and then we'll go over to your guys' questions because I really want to finish off the next 20 minutes just taking your guys' questions and your guys' comments. But it did what the first Incredibles did so well. It was a movie for adults that is kid-friendly. And, you know, because you go to that first Incredibles movie, that's not a kid's movie. The main themes of the movie are, you know, parents, particularly a guy in his later middle age, thinking about lamenting the loss of his glory days and wishing he can go back to his glory. That's not kids' issues. These aren't issues that kids can understand or relate with. The responsibilities of parenthood, how that changes your life. These are not things kids can understand. Incredibles, the first Incredibles was a film for adults that was kid-friendly. That was also at the same time very kid-friendly, but its main themes were really pointed at adults. I feel like it was kind of the same thing here. I feel like Incredibles 2 is not a movie aimed at kids, although it's very kid-friendly. I feel like it's aimed at parents. And you know what? I got to tell you this story. I was sitting beside the best woman in the world because the theater was packed, right? So sitting right beside me was this family, including the grandmother. There's a grandmother, and I was sitting right beside the grandmother. And just let me say, it may have been the best experience I have ever had in my life sitting beside somebody in a movie theater, because I had Anne on this side of me and this grandmother sitting on the other side of me. And I never spoke a word to this lady, but sitting beside this lady is one of the best movie-going experiences of my life. Because anytime something remotely, like, shocking would happen on screen, like when something is revealed, she would either cover her mouth or her heart and go, oh my! Like, just like these really amazing reactions. And every time there was something funny on screen, I felt like this lady beside me was having the best time that she's had in the last 25 years. Like, it just made my heart happy. Sitting beside this, like, 75-year-old woman who was just so into this movie and having such a good time. It made me have an even better time. Which again goes back to the whole magic of the movies, that nothing replaces the movie-going experience. It always beats watching a movie at home. And just sitting beside this lady, total stranger, totally reminded me that, just, like I said, made my heart happy. Like how into this movie this lady was. Anyway. So yeah, Incredibles 2, absolutely amazing. Love this film. It's not my favorite film of the year. I think, you know, I think A Quiet Place is still probably my favorite film of the year. But, I mean, it's got to rank right up there. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's go over and hear from you guys. What are you guys thinking about when we're talking about Incredibles 2? We're going to start things off with Curtis Lopez, who writes, I already saw it 3 times. Though I think the first one is better, this one gets better and better every time I see it. Well, see, that's the funny thing. That's why I am not ready to declare which one I think is better. Because if you're anything like me, Curtis, you've seen Incredibles 20 times, right? I've seen Incredibles at least 20 times. And it's like a really good movie. It just kind of gets better every time you watch it. I've only seen Incredibles 2 twice, and I'm already not sure which one's better. And maybe after I see Incredibles 4 or 5 times, it might edge out the first one. Like I said, I'm not ready to say one is better than the other than just to say they're both amazing. And I completely relate with you. Like, I saw it, I've seen it twice. I liked it even more the second time than I did the first time. Like, it's difficult to put into words. So, and, you know, after I saw it the first time, Anne was actually getting annoyed with me because I was just buzzing like, oh my God, Incredibles 2, oh my God, Incredibles 2. Like, I was just buzzing around the house. And then she saw it and she's like, okay, now I get it. Now I get why you're so happy. And she was really happy with it too. All right, Curtis follows that up with, can we please talk about that dinner scene? Hands down the funniest scene of the year so far. Not sure which dinner scene you're talking about, because there are a couple of dinner scenes in this movie and they're both just spectacular. So you've got the one dinner scene that we see in the trailer. That's the Parr family sitting around where Valley goes, so are we going to talk about the elephant in the room? You know, there's that scene where Dash is complaining about all vegetables and the big arguments going on. The mom and dad are trying to have an argument without looking like they're having an argument from the kids. That scene was hilarious. The other dinner scene is the one where I referred to a little bit earlier at Tony Reidinger's restaurant, when she looks up and Tony Reidinger is her waiter. Oh my God, that was funny. Oh my God, that was funny. And you know, the funny thing is, Anne and I are not parents yet, right? But every time Bob, Mr. Incredible, did something incredibly wrong or felt completely helpless as a parent, Anne kept looking at me. She goes, that's totally going to be you. I'm like, I know. I'm going to be completely useless. I feel bad for any kids I have. I'm going to be useless. Anyway. But yeah, that scene, and you know what? I didn't even notice. I was laughing so hard already. The first time I watched the movie, I didn't even notice that all the water came out of her nose. I just thought she spit all the water out, which was funny enough. And then it was my second viewing that I paid attention and I noticed that all the water came out of her nose, and it made me laugh even harder. It made me laugh even harder than I did the first time. All right. Curtis does another follow-up. Jack Jack versus Raccoon, worth the price of admission. You know, I really thought they were going to do a callback to that later in the film. And I even thought maybe in the end credits or something. I thought they would follow it up with the raccoon coming back with like 7 or 8 of his raccoon buddies and another big battle royale between Jack Jack and the raccoons. And you know what's funny? That scene could have gotten dark because I thought Jack Jack was going to straight up murder that raccoon. Like, I thought Jack Jack was going to straight up kill the raccoon. Like, that shot when the raccoon's all twisted up in the lawn chair and Jack Jack does his Human Torch imitation and goes flame on, everything's on fire, and the look of terror in the raccoon's face. For a second there, I thought, oh my gosh, this is about to get dark. Like, I thought Jack Jack was going to come over and literally burn that thing to death. And that was clearly what the raccoon was nervous about. But it brings up another thought I had about it coming out of the film, is that, you know, Jack Jack, yeah, it's almost like a Planet Hulk situation. I couldn't help but wonder if in a few years, all the other superheroes in the world are going to go to the Incredibles and say, we have to lock your son in a spaceship and send him to some other planet because your son is basically too powerful. Like, essentially, this movie suggests that there's nothing Jack Jack can't do, right? Like, Jack Jack would crush Thanos. Like, this Jack Jack in Incredibles 2, he wouldn't have had any problems dealing with Thanos. He just would have come up with some superpower that would just wipe out Thanos. And I almost put out a tweet that said Jack Jack with the greater symbol than Thanos. But I thought that might be a little bit of a spoiler, so I didn't tweet that out. But I wanted to do that because you get the feeling Jack Jack is like a global threat. When this kid gets older, he could be a threat to the stability of the Earth. Because they make him really, and he's still just a baby. But anyway, that's a conversation for another time, I'm sure. Okay, we go to Ben Rayner, who writes, can we talk about Bao? I think I am the only one who thought that was a brother story instead of a mother and son story. I love the short and got me. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Ben, that you thought it was a brother story. Like, yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about there or how you said. However, let's skip to the other part. The end. The end's totally great. The two endings. The first ending when the son comes home and him and his mother like kind of reconcile. Oh, so sad. But then there's the next ending with the family all making food together and they've brought the new daughter, the new daughter-in-law who apparently was the cause of the rift between the mother and the son. Now she's there and part of the family. Oh, it's so special. It was so nice. And like I said, I'm a little prone to liking it anyway because it all takes place in Toronto. So that was cool. All right. Curtis Lopez writes, can we please get a short film of Edna babysitting Jack Jack? You know, I've seen a couple of people tweet about that. Thinking I've even heard one or two reviewers saying we need an Edna and Jack Jack short film. Whether it takes place while Edna was babysitting Jack Jack or whether it's something that happens later, we need an Edna mode and Jack Jack short film. And Edna, by the way, is Anne's absolute favorite character in the Incredibles universe. She just smiles like an idiot and laughs her face off every second that Edna mode's on screen. And she loved her in the first one, loved her even more in the second one. So there's that. But yeah, I am all down for that. I am completely down for an Edna and Jack Jack short film. I think you've got a winner there. I'd be totally on board for that. Curtis follows it up. Don't you think Bao, the kids in Bao, the kids should be playing hockey instead of soccer since it's in Toronto? Well, I mean, it was summertime. In the summertime, kids play soccer or basketball, just like everywhere else in the summertime. And in the winter, they all lace them up and play hockey. But in the summertime, lots of soccer, lots of basketball, things like that. Let's see here. Grandmaster writes, Jesus, 180 million opening. That's incredible. Okay, we're going to talk about this on the John Campea show tomorrow. But just to put this into perspective, the previous record, if I'm remembering it correctly, for the biggest opening weekend of an animated film in history was Finding Dory at, I believe, was $135 million. Let me look that up here quickly. Finding Dory box office. But I believe it was $135 million. I will tell you now for sure, opening weekend, $135 million. That was the all-time record. Incredibles just beat it by $45 million. Wrap your heads around that. And I believe Incredibles, just like that, became, I think it's the 8th largest opening weekend movie of all time. Let me just, let me just verify that right now. Incredibles 2 is the number 8 opening weekend of all time, beating out Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2, beating out Iron Man 3, beating out Beauty and the Beast, beating out Captain America Civil War. It beat Captain America Civil War by like $800,000. Not by much, but it beat it out. It is the 8th largest opening of all time. And again, by miles. Miles and miles and miles. The biggest animated opening weekend of all time. It's just crazy. You think people were waiting for this movie? You think people were anxious for this movie to finally come out? Comes out, and it's just absolutely crushing. But again, we'll talk more about that on the John Campea show tomorrow morning. But yeah, it's just Nutty. Absolutely nutty how many people wanted to go see this. This is crazy. All right, next one. Ike Moore writes, it's up to Pixar, but I would love a third one. Oh, yeah. But I see, and I feel like if they do a third one, and after an opening like this, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what kind of international audience that Incredibles can get, but I'm going to guess it's got a decent chance of joining the $1 billion club, at any rate. With this kind of an opening, it is odd to think that they wouldn't do a part 3, and that this time it wouldn't take 14 years to do it. However, if they do a part 3 now, I really would like them to move forward in time a little bit. Advance the story 3, 4, 10, I don't know, years. Jack is now maybe Dash's age. Dash and Violet are now like college age, or something along, I don't know, something along those lines. But I wouldn't mind seeing that. And maybe like Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl are now thinking about retirement and you know, all this. I don't know. But if they do a third one, I would like to see them advance the story a few years. I think that would be a good way to go. Okay. Ben Rayner writes, I knew who the villain was right away. I didn't. I mean, I suspected the Bob Odenkirk character at first. Hold on a second. I suspected the Bob Odenkirk character at first, but then I thought, nah, that would be a little bit so Winston DeVore. I thought that's a little bit too on the nose with the syndrome thing. And then I knew there was this possibility it was Evelyn, his sister. But by the way, I can't be the only one who thought this. When I first heard Evelyn, I thought, because it looks like her a little bit, and it certainly sounds like her, I actually thought it was Rashida Jones from Parks and Rec. I thought it was Rashida Jones, because it looks like her a little bit, and it certainly sounds like her. But it wasn't. It was Catherine Keener. It was Catherine Keener from 40-Year-Old Virgin and a billion other movies, and, you know, Get Out and all these movies. It was her. It's like, oh yeah, as soon as I realized this, yeah, it totally sounds like her. But at first, I thought Evelyn was Rashida Jones. So anyway, there's that. I knew that was a possibility, but I didn't think they were going to go in that direction. They did. Works fine for me. Again, though, the villain, like even the screenslaver itself, is much like a lot of the Marvel movies, in the sense that the villain is just there to push the hero's story along. There's really no emphasis on the villain. The villain is kind of a side note so that the movie can focus on the heroes. And that's what I felt Incredibles 2 did, and it works. This wasn't the movie that should have been about the villain. The movie should not have had a big focus on Screenslaver. The movie needs to stay focused on the Incredibles and the family, and just use Screenslaver, the villain, just to push along the hero story. That's what they did. It's an old formula the Marvel's been using for a long time, and it worked really well for them this time around too. So yeah, I wasn't really sure who the villain was going to be ending up being. I think ultimately at the end of the day, it didn't really matter who the villain ended up being, just as long as it pushed the story along. Let's see. Where'd Raymond go? Where'd Raymond go? There he is. Raymond Verada writes, Incredibles plus Big Hero 6 crossover, please. No, I wouldn't want that personally. No Infinity War ending, though. I heard from a friend an entire cruise ship filled of kids cried at a midnight show. Oh, I'm not I heard adults crying at the end of Infinity War, for heaven's sakes. I heard adults crying, going, no! Like when Black Panther died and when Spider-Man died, they're like, ah! Like, I can only imagine a ship full of kids at a kids screening showing them. Well, who has a kids screening of Infinity War when all their heroes die at the end? That doesn't sound like it makes much sense to me. I love Big Hero 6. I want there to be another Big Hero 6 movie, although it sounds like they're going to do a TV show instead, which sounds stupid. But honestly, I don't want them crossing over. I'm very happy with them doing their own thing. Let's see here. Curtis has a lot to say about this movie. I'm shocked the theaters never warned the audience about the strobe lights in the movie, especially for those with epilepsy. It was short. It was that one scene you're talking about was very, very short. It was quick. I don't personally see there being a need for a warning. But then again, I don't have epilepsy, and I don't know anybody that does. So I'm speaking from a position of ignorance, obviously, but I'm just saying as an average moviegoer, I didn't even think it was very, very short. It was quick, didn't have a long lasting thing. So I'm not surprised about that. Curtis then follows it up with, I hope when they do Incredibles 3, they age up the character. I was just talking about that, Curtis. It would be interesting to see how their interactions change. Yep, their interactions, you know, how maybe the family grows apart a little bit while staying tight, how their powers evolved, how do Dash and Violet embrace who they are? You know, getting forward, how does Jack, again, Jack could be a global threat. A kid who's got every superpower imaginable. He has telekinesis. He can travel in and out of alternate dimensions. He has super growth. He's got the Human Torch powers. He's got Elastigirl's powers. He's got, like, it turns into a demon. He shoots like sharp, powerful lasers from his eyes. I mean, it seems like the kid can do anything. So I'd be very curious to see what they did with the Jack as he reaches like Jack's age or a Dash's age. Or maybe a little after that. Do they have a hard time controlling him? And how powerful is Mr. Incredible? Like, they really do set it up, especially more in this film than in the others, that Mr. Incredible is basically this universe's Superman. Like, even Jack, when he's at his worst and he's like the demon and he's like attacking Mr. Incredible and nothing phases him, Mr. Incredible is like, no biting the daddy, because the demon baby is trying to eat through his arm and it's just nothing. So how powerful is Mr. Incredible? So that's an interesting question I have. But yeah, it would be I'd be most interested to see where they went with the Jack character, especially considering just how powerful they're insinuating he is. So that would be interesting. Curtis follows up, I love the 50s modern futuristic setting. The world seems tiny. Yeah, it is. Like, it has all the modern sensibilities, but it has the stylings of like the 1960s, right? There's something, which is another reason why you can't cross over Big Hero 6 and Incredibles. They clearly take place in two different universes. But that feel, I agree with you, Chris. Not enough people point that out. The feel of the universe, the aesthetic, the design of the universe is so great. I just love it. Let's see. Curtis again writes, what should Jack's superhero name be? My pick would be Wildcard. Oh, I don't know. No idea. That's a whole discussion for another time. And Curtis, one more time, follows up. When Violet grabs a tub of, oh my God, that scene was hilarious. When Violet grabs a tub of ice cream out of the fridge and you just see a sweater floating, and Anne and most of the women in the audience that I was in just lost their minds at that scene. You just see Violet's invisible body with just her sweater grabbing ice cream out of the freezer and grabbing this huge spoon. That might have been the biggest laugh I heard from the women in the audience, was at that. And I know that moment got the huge reaction out of Anne. Just a huge reaction out of Anne. So many, like, of these great little spot gags. I mean, there's great humor in the fabric of the film, but it's also littered with these little spot gags, whether it's closing the freezer door and there's Violet's angry face, or the water coming out of Violet's nose, or Violet going to go get the ice cream or something like that. Like, all these little spot gags that were just totally priceless at the same time. Ben Heyusa writes, and we just got, we're already over a half hour, but I'm going to finish off the questions that we have here, guys. Ben Heyusa writes, as far as being a family, this movie taught us a lot more than the first one. Jack versus Raccoon. Weak villain, to be honest, in my opinion. Overall, love it. Yeah. And that's exactly what I was saying, right? Ben, is that the villain wasn't important. The villain, and nor should the villain have been important. I mean, the villain was a little bit more important than the first one with Syndrome, but I really felt that the decision to keep the focus on the family and on the Parr family, that was the most important thing in this movie. The villain was irrelevant. You could have made the villain anybody doing anything. As long as the villain was there to push forward the hero's story, that's where the focus of this movie needed to be. So I agree with you. It was a weak villain, but it's irrelevant. The villain, completely forgettable, completely irrelevant. It's not important. All the important stuff was about the Parr family and them being on screen, and the villain was just there to give them an impetus to drive them into action. That was the only thing that was important about the villain, and it really didn't matter. And quite frankly, I wouldn't have wanted them to have a villain that had more screen time. I wouldn't have wanted them to have a villain that dominated more of the movie than Screenslaver did. I'm perfectly happy with the balance that they struck, and it worked. Now, maybe in an Incredibles 3, they need to mix that up a little bit, and maybe they can go more villain or something like that. But for this movie, I thought it was the perfect decision. I did not care about who the villain was going to be. I didn't want to care about who the villain was. I was there to see the Parr family. I wanted to see the Incredibles. And that's what Brad Bird gave us. Let's see. Andrew Hoagie writes, love the short before the movie. It gripped me. Completely agree. I mean, we've been talking about Bao, and it is so funny that, you know, so many people, because when Piper played, Piper was the little short film that played before Finding Dory. It was totally charming and great. But, you know, it became an afterthought. I find a lot of people are talking about Bao, which is wonderful. I mean, it's really great to see short anime. And I love the fact that Pixar is so dedicated to short animation to play before their feature films. I love it. And it gives them a chance to really give new talent a chance. Because the woman who directed Bao, Canadian girl, by the way, good Canadian-Chinese girl, has, you know, her first thing directing for them. It was the first Pixar short ever directed by a woman, and it was great. And it gives them another project to let their talent, their in-house talent, grow and develop and show what they've got. And Bao is just a great example of that and how that turned out. Dim-Sum05 writes, Mrs. Incredible swinging around the city gave me some Spider-Man feels. That fight versus Pizza Kid was wild. She was definitely, oh yeah, she was great. She definitely got more feature time this film than she got in the first one. And you're right, her chasing down that train through the city. And you're right, it really does have kind of a Spider-Man feel to it, right? And instead of webs, it's her own elasticity. So I thought that was really cool. I thought that was great. I love the Elasticycle. I thought that thing was great. Yeah, I really did. And you know what? The funny thing is, the trailers gave you the impression that this movie, while the first movie, the bigger focus of the first movie was clearly on Mr. Incredible. The trailers gave you sense that this one was going to focus a little bit more on Elastigirl. I mean, I've only seen it twice. Maybe I still kind of felt like Bob was the main focus of the movie. I still kind of felt like most of the movie was around him and Elastigirl was the side story. But whatever the balance is, it doesn't matter. It was all great. And I love Elastigirl's stuff. It was wonderful. And I love, while she's trying to deal with the Screenslaver, Bob's trying to deal with keeping his family together. And then at the end, he's got to try to come in and save the day. And I thought it was great. I loved it. Oops, a little bit of a bump there. Ben Rayner writes, funniest part wasn't in movie for me, but when Mr. and Mrs. Incredible kissed kid in theater went, ooh. Oh, I see you say, like when Mr. and Mrs. Incredible kissed, there was a kid in the theater that went, ooh. One of the most, that reminds me, when Ann and I saw it, at the very opening of the movie, when you just hear the music, do 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 do, and the screen's red, and then you see the Disney, because you know every Disney movie starts with seeing the Disney castle, but it was the Disney castle in Incredibles art form that comes up. All you hear is this kid at the front of the theater going, "It's the Disney castle!" And the whole theater just started giggling. It was adorable. It was so cute. So I could totally see that happening. About the funniest moment being Mr. and hearing a kid out of nowhere going, ew, that would be funny. I would have giggled a lot too. Rogue Mammoth writes, saw it in MX4D, so distracting, ever hear of it? I've heard of 4D, I've never heard of MX4D. So no, I have not heard of it. I'm not quite aware what that is, Rogue, but do me a favor, send me an email to john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. And, send me a link to whatever this MX4D thing is. I'd be interested in seeing what it is so I can get a picture of when you're saying it was a distracting force in it. So send that to me. Let me see what it is we're talking about. Angel Chang writes, would love a prequel too. Everyone is young. Oh, a prequel would be an interesting idea. Like back before Mr. and Mrs. Maybe back when Mr. and Mr. Incredible first meet. Because even in the flashback of the first Incredibles movie, they're already engaged. It was the day of their wedding that we meet them, right? So it would be interesting to see a movie when Mr. and Mrs. Incredible first meet. Maybe Mr. Incredible and Frozone have recently become partners. That could be interesting. But you know me, I would rather move forward. I'm not big into going back and telling old. I would rather move forward, tell some of those old tales in flashbacks maybe. But hey, look, if they announce next week that next year there's going to be an Incredibles origin movie, who am I kidding? Of course I'm going to be there for sure. I would just rather an Incredibles 3 moving forward, you know, like we've been talking about a little bit earlier. Patrick Conway writes, Hulk, Superman, and Thor versus Jack Jack. They have no chance. And throw Thanos into that. They have no chance. I mean, that was just the funniest thing to me. It's like every scene, Jack Jack exhibited a new power. It's just like he is the ultimate super. To a point that if you wanted to go a little dark, you could do an Incredibles 3 where like the world is concerned about Jack Jack. And then what kind of villain could you bring in that could pose any kind of a threat to Jack Jack? So, but no, Jack Jack stole the show because I saw it early. Obviously, I saw Incredibles early, saw an early press screening, but there were a few people who saw a screening even a couple of days before me. And those people were just raving like, Jack Jack steals the show. Jack Jack steals the show. Wait till you see Jack Jack. And I'm like, okay, well, I hope it doesn't get too silly. Like, I hope it's not just all about the baby and it's just blah, blah. And then I saw the movie, I'm like, yep, he steals the show. But you know what? Violet also kind of steals. I'm realizing here as we're talking about the movie and I'm talking about all my favorite parts, I'm realizing Violet is the center of a lot of those scenes. That was a number of my favorite parts of the movie. So Violet in many ways kind of steals the movie as well. So, I mean, yeah, there's so many good things they can do. All right, final question. And then we will wrap this. We've got a little bit over time. Final question comes to us from Ryan Walterson, who writes, that scene where Johnny Quest plays on TV, Hanna-Barbera cartoons exists in the world of Pixar. Yes, you know, I was thinking because I got a buddy of mine. There's a buddy of mine who is currently working on producing a live-action Johnny Quest movie. And I've had him on my show before, like one of my old shows. You've met him before. And all I could think about was, I wonder if he knew. He must. I mean, I wonder if my buddy knew the Johnny Quest clip was going to be in there. That, I should text him and ask him if he knew that or not, because I haven't texted him since that happened. But anyway, so that'll do it, guys, for this, I was going to say Infinity War. That'll do it for this installment, this special video, going into full spoiler discussion on Incredibles 2. Guys, if you are still here and you're somebody who hasn't seen it, what are you waiting for? Rush out and see this movie. Even if you just heard us talking all about all the best parts, it pales in comparison to actually seeing it on screen. Makes you go and watch it. I know I'm planning on seeing it 3 or 4 more times. I mean, I have so much fun watching this movie. And the box office results are insane. It has completely crushed the animated opening weekend box office record by miles. Like, I can't imagine something else coming close anytime soon. Just nutty. So another huge triumph for Pixar. It was great to see Brad Bird. What an amazing job Brad Bird has done 14 years after doing the first one. And Brad Bird wrote and directed this thing. Such an amazing job he did. He really knows how to do these characters well. Hearing all the original voices back, I mean, notwithstanding the kids, because, you know, you had to change the kids out, but it was just great to see. Anyway, thanks a lot for joining me for this spoiler discussion, guys. Really appreciate it. Don't forget, tomorrow morning, the John Campea Show is back. We're going to be talking about the box office. Actually got a whole bunch of stuff we need to talk about tomorrow. So that'll be at 8:30 in the morning Pacific Standard Time. Make sure you join us then. Oh, and one other thing, guys. You guys know I've been doing a lot of Warcraft playing and even streaming myself playing Warcraft. I am moving all of my gaming streaming over to Twitch. So if you want to go over to Twitch and start following me there, because I'm even going to be playing some Warcraft tonight, but I'm going to start doing all my gaming over on Twitch. So you can follow me on Twitch. You go to twitch.tv/JohnCampea1. So twitch.tv/JohnCampea and the number 1. That's where you can follow me there. I'm going to be doing some streaming a little bit later tonight. And I'm going to play more things other than just Warcraft. I'm going to play some other things. But tonight, for the next while, I'm just going to be playing Warcraft. But anyway, just wanted to announce that here. Okay, guys, that will do it for me. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's John Campea. And until the next video, bye-bye.